In the mid-1950s, the author and minister Walter R. Martin was asked by the Zondervan Publishing Company, an evangelical publisher, to write a book exposing Seventh-day Adventists as a non-Christian cult. Martin contacted T. Edgar Unruh, who at the time was the president of the East Pennsylvania Conference, to ask him if he could put him in contact with Adventists who could answer his questions. Not long after this, a series of dialogues began, which involved Leroy Froome and R. Allen Anderson. And by the way, these two, Leroy Froome and Allen Anderson, are said to have been Jesuits, because they were seen at an SDA institution, and then there was someone who had been invited to that SDA institution, a Roman Catholic, or someone who had left the Roman Catholic Church and had joined and become an Adventist. When she saw those two men at that SDA institution, she pointed at those men and said, "What are those men doing here?" And when someone said, "Who? Those two? Those are very good pastors," she said, "No, those two men are Roman Catholic priests." So Leroy Froome and Roy Allen Anderson were I believe to have been Roman Catholic Jesuit priests. And then there was Reed, representing the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and Martin George E. Cannon, Donald Gray Barnhouse Jr., and Russell Hitt, representing the evangelicals. The evangelicals asked questions and Adventists answered them. And one result of these dialogues was the publishing of a book called Questions on Doctrine in 1957 by the Review and Herald. The book was published with the idea of answering specific questions by scholars and representatives of other Christian denominations regarding the Adventist faith. It was distributed among Adventist church members, but soon became an object of controversy when an Adventist educator disagreed on the answers given to certain aspects of the sanctuary and the human nature of Christ. Yeah, so basically, the book Questions on Doctrine, which was published in 1957, stated that atonement was done at the cross. So basically, doing away with Christ's ministry in the heavenly sanctuary, which we read about in Hebrews 8 and 9. And also the belief, it promoted this false belief that Jesus came, was born on this earth without a sinful human nature. Now that's contrary to the Holy Scriptures, because if you go to Romans 8 verse 3, it says that Jesus was born with a fallen human nature, but obviously Jesus didn't sin. I'm not saying Jesus sinned, but that's what the Holy Scriptures say. He had the same nature as we have, but in that nature he managed to overcome sin, and also that basically also encourages us to be Christ-like in being holy and without sin, just like Christ was holy and without sin, because sin is the transgression of the law. Despite this opposition, the book has been reprinted and is still used today. Questions on Doctrine taught that atonement was finished at the cross, like I said. And the other point of contention was that Questions of Doctrine taught that Christ had an unfallen nature, whereas the Bible says that he was born with a fallen human nature, as per Romans 8 verse 3, which I already stated. And there are other Bible texts as well that say that. Neil C. Wilson, who was the dad to Ted Wilson, who at the time of this recording is still the president of the General Conference of SDAs. And I believe this year SDAs are going to have a general conference, which perhaps they're going to vote in a new president. But Neil Wilson was the dad to the current president of the General Conference of SDAs. Neil Wilson stated under oath in court, although it is true that there was a period in the life of the Seventh-day Adventist Church when the denomination took a distinctly anti-Roman Catholic viewpoint, that attitude on the Church's part was nothing more than a manifestation of widespread anti-popery among conservative Protestant denominations in the early part of this century and the latter part of the last, and which has now been, listen to what he said here under oath in court. He says the idea, this thing about being anti-Roman Catholic, he says that idea has been consigned to the historical trash heap so far as the Seventh-day Adventist Church is concerned. So this happened in a court case in which the SDA Church had been taken to court, and that was in 1974, 1975. So Neil Wilson also stated that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is not a congregational church, but rather a hierarchical one, just like the Roman Catholic Church. He declared, "The plain and undeniable fact is that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is most assuredly not a congregational one, but is clearly of the hierarchical variety." Additionally, Wilson stated that the Seventh-day Adventist Church maintains a hierarchical structure of church authority. And he also said there is another universal and truly Catholic organization, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. That was in Adventist Review, March 5, 1981. So in 1982, the World Council of Churches had a meeting where it was agreed that churches would not make an issue about doctrinal differences when it comes to baptism, Eucharist, and ministry. This actually happened in Lima, Peru, 1982. So those three things, baptism, Eucharist, and ministry, were then called BEM. Although the SDA Church claims to have the status of an observer at the World Council of Churches, it took part in this agreement because it even changed its logo to fit in with this agreement in 1996. The SDA Church ditched the logo that depicted three angels with a globe behind it. The globe itself is erroneous, yes, but the three angels is the three angels are mentioned in Revelation 14. But the logo was changed to three wavy lines, which represents the BEM, Baptism, Eucharist, and Ministry Agreement, which was agreed in Lima, Peru, 1982. This is so the logo shows these three wavy lines on top of a green Bible with an upside-down cross in the middle of it. The cross is not very clearly depicted, but if you look at it very carefully, you see that the cross is upside down. So the SDA Sabbath School quarterlies are written by Jesuits. There's evidence, a lot of evidence of that, and someone even sent me an article about that on Telegram recently. And the Sabbath School quarterlies also use the NIV, which some humorists would call the New International Perversion, which is it's basically a Roman Catholic counterfeit Bible based on the Codex Vaticanus and Codex Sinaiticus manuscripts. So Ted Wilson, the current president of the SDA, SDA Church, and other leaders voted to allow spiritual formation to be taught at SDA colleges and universities. Now, I just wanted to remind everyone, it's this. I've been going on for quite a while talking about some of the things that I personally experienced and some of the things that are happening and have happened in the SDA Church. I'm giving my reasons for why I left the nominal SDA Church. Yeah, just a reminder of that. Although there's quite a lot of history in what I'm saying as well, for those who want to learn how the SDA Church came to be where it is today. Basically, mostly through infiltration by Roman Catholic priests, especially the Jesuits. So I was saying Ted Wilson and other SDA leaders voted to allow spiritual formation to be taught at SDA colleges and universities. So for those who don't know what spiritual formation is, basically these lessons or classes are taken from the Catholic Church, because when Ignatius Loyola was going through his transformation from a soldier to a warrior monk before he actually formed the Jesuit order, he also went through the spiritual exercises, and like I said, these were actually voted in to be taught in Adventist colleges and universities by Ted Wilson and other church leaders. So Ted Wilson stated that there is no Sunday law coming down the pipeline, thereby lulling SDAs to sleep. There's a video of that on YouTube if anyone wants to search for it. He said that the mark of the beast is worshipping on any other day other than the Sabbath, when SDAs have always believed that the mark of the beast is in full Sunday worship. The SDA Church condones homosexuality, stating that those in a committed homosexual relationship are accepted into the church. ADRA, which is like a sort of like a relief organization from within the SDA Church, and also accepts funds from USAID, USAID. Also works with the UN, which the UN was created by the Jesuit order in the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church is the one that started World War I and World War II, and we saw that the UN basically was formed after the Second World War, after the League of Nations had failed, because the Americans had refused to take part in it. So I addressed the issue of the UN in one of my other videos, if anyone wants to go and watch that. So now we have even abortions taking place in the nominal SDA Church, which, like I said, is a transgression of God's law not to kill. Some will make excuses and say, "Oh yeah, but it's only in certain situations where we think the mother's life is at risk." That's just an excuse. There are many situations where it was thought that the mother was going to die if they carried the pregnancy, but then that turned out not to be true. So one of my other beliefs is, or my something I believe is that, and something I'll never do is, I will never be part of a church. I will never be knowingly part of a church that is involved in doing abortions. I will never be part of such a church, because that's murder. I don't really care what anyone has to say. Making excuses and stuff like that. There's also misuse of tithe, such as the suing of Christians who use the SDA name, such as Creation SDAs who were taken to court because they were using the name SDA, which has, like I said already, has been trademarked by the General Conference. And also even recently, I think it was last year or the year before, I think maybe the year before, which was 2023, the Free Seventh-day Adventists were taken to court by the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists for using the name Seventh-day Adventist. And there have been other groups as well that have been taken to court by the General Conference for using the name Seventh-day Adventist, and they've used tithe money basically to take those groups to court, which is wrong. So there's also women's ordination, ordaining women as elders and pastors, and this was voted down by the majority of delegates at the three different General Conference sessions. This was voted down, but they keep bringing this issue up, because the SDA church is supposed to become like the other Sunday keeping churches. What I've noticed as well is that the Sunday keeping churches, when they voted to have women as pastors or bishops or as elders, is that what has followed is homosexuality, in terms of having homosexual pastors and homosexual priests. That's what's going to follow, because ordaining women as elders and pastors, basically it's an opening wedge to allow homosexuality to come into the church. But women are still being trained as pastors and are also being ordained as elders. I know this for a fact, because when I was attending Newbold Church in England, there were women elders there, and there were also women pastors as well, if you, in quotes, women pastors, because there's no such thing in the Holy Scriptures. So also what I like to call the Great Hoax, which there's a book called The Great Hope, which has been published and is being distributed by the Nominal SDA Church instead of the Great Controversy, which is what is supposed to be, is basically one of the best books that's supposed to be shared by SDAs. Something else I already kind of spoke about already, brainwashing, a lot of brainwashing in the nominal SDA church, that outside, basically if you leave the SDA church, you're lost. So in other words, outside of the Seventh-day Adventist church, you can't be saved. Same as the Roman Catholic Church, which says if you leave the Roman Catholic Church, outside of the Roman Catholic Church, no human being can be saved.